It is Friday the 13th. It is December. There is a full moon, and we have Maura Carabello in-house wearing a Make America Great Again hat, a Trump bedazzled pin, and Speaker Schultz here. So I totally forgot.
This happened.
Yes, I know, he's smiling so big. So you'll have to watch this one on YouTube if you want to see all this. I'll post pictures as well. I forgot about this bet, and I'm so happy when you walked in with this because I was like, oh, I forgot all about this.
And I have to give Maura credit because
Okay.
I was supposed to provide the Trump hat, and she even went above and beyond and has a Trump pin, and she came with President Predicto.
Ooh, it's like an 8-ball that tells you your future.
We won't say what we were asking before, but we are having a good time with it
Yeah.
and predicting our futures. But look at it, how awesome. But I want to point out, notice today Maura is glowing. She's in an amazing, beautiful mood, full of
It's sort of like
happiness and
Friday the 13th.
sunshine.
Maybe that's why the hats are red, because rose-colored glasses kind of give you that beautiful outlook on the world. Now you have a red hat, and it just kind of gives you that warm, like you've been out in the sun glow.
So let me just tell you, since the speaker didn't come through, I had to get this beautiful hat, and I had to promise, there was some trust issues with the owner of the hat. I had to promise
why.
Mr. Greg Hughes that this hat would come back in pristine condition. I will say that I feel like there's a slight moment of protest for me, because if you look at the back of the hat,
Ooh, I haven't seen the back.
it says Trump 2020, which, as we all recall, is the year he lost.
Oh, so this is
I
an old
feel-
one.
I feel like that kind of is a little something.
Mm.
I feel like you feel unburdened from what has been. I
This
feel
will
like that's
be
why you're so glowing.
the one day that I have my bedazzled Trump pin and the MAGA hat, because I'm Irish and I will follow through on a bet.
I was going to say, what a good sport.
Yeah,
What a
I
good
like
sport.
following through.
Yes.
I still would love to see you in the White Dudes for Harris
Nope,
shirt, just
not
for
gonna
fun. Like
happen.
opening day of the
Never will happen.
legislature.
Nope,
2028.
Never.
What about on your ranch? Okay, so I joined A New World. I didn't really think about following the speaker on Instagram
Oh, boy.
until recently. I have this whole new outlook on him. He's out there like rustling cattle at Dark 100. And then I'm like feeling bad for the cattle because I know you're getting a good price for them right now. But I'm like, oh, these cute cows.
You're not
and-
feeling bad for me for having to wrestle?
No, not at all. Just the cows. But yeah, it's kind of fun to see Speaker Schultz out there like doing
Working.
his thing. Yeah, like actually, I don't know if he's working or just taking videos. Maybe he has people who do the work. And
It's
then he
actually
just-
hard for me
and
to
then
do
he goes
both.
back to bed.
No,
Yeah.
it's hard for me to do. I'm not a good multitasker, so it's not an easy thing for me to do.
Mm.
Your
I like
ranch
it. I'm learning.
pictures are the best.
But, are they?
Yeah.
That's my happy place, not Salt Lake City. My ranch. That's my happy place. That's where I like.
You like a little dirt,
I like
a little
bit.
manure.
I grew up that way.
All right. I think we all have our happy place. Mine's a beach, and we don't have one here in Utah, but I still like it
Yeah.
here. Yeah. How was the birthday celebration?
Great. I had a good day. I had a pleasant day, brunching with people, and then I shared it with a 2-year-old. He
Yay.
did really well. It was his first. This is a credit to his mom. His family's been really good about not overloading sugar, so he hasn't been on sugar. And so she's like, yeah, no, I'm doing I'm doing cupcakes for the 2-year-old's birthday. I'm going to let him eat some sugar. But she's a pediatrician, and she did low sugar cupcakes, which
Love
I would
it.
just say as a grown up, they were fine. But they were very chocolate, but like healthy chocolate, you know what I'm
Sounds
talking
terrible.
about?
Mhm.
And so here was the first two. Birthday boy takes a bite, looks at her, spits it out.
I'm with birthday boy.
The 3-year-old cousin takes a bite. I actually thought someone had hurt her and that she got smacked in the head because she lost her ever-loving mind. And she's choking and spitting, and the parents all hover. Yeah, she didn't like the cupcakes either. That's what all this was about. So when it came to the adults, we're like, you know, we might be good. I mean, there's a chance.
Skip the
But,
cupcakes, save the
yeah,
calories.
It was a good
The
birthday.
healthy
That's
stuff.
hilarious.
Good birthday.
Yay. And so now we move into full December. Although first, I guess we've got to celebrate December 13th, which is a Friday. So anything can happen today. The day's still young. It's
didn't
only
realize that.
2:16. I was so excited to come in here and talk something fun with you guys because I feel like the entire world, except for you two, are enraptured with the, is it a drone? Is it an airplane? Is it an alien or nothing in New Jersey? And you guys are just not into this conspiracy.
I didn't even know. I was
I
so
know.
bummed about not knowing there were aliens in New Jersey.
It's been a nice distraction from everything else going on because it just keeps getting weirder and weirder. So
And
anyhow,
they're still there. I
yeah.
can still join.
So yeah, it's not too late to jump down the rabbit hole. Just
I need to go look it up.
jump
see
on
exactly
social media.
what's
You
going
can
on.
get involved. It'll give you a
I'm
little
gonna follow
something.
it now.
Yeah.
I'll follow it now. See
Mhm.
where this ends. See where this plot
One of
ends.
them crashed today, or they think one of them crashed. If there's aliens inside, will the government let us know?
Nope.
I'd
Area
probably
51,
not.
Right?
Yeah.
That's where it's going to end up.
Who's gonna conceal
There's an
us?
area here in Utah, a lot of people believe that's farmland, that is where we keep aliens. Whether it's in Roy, Utah, or in southern Utah, I don't know. But
China probably owns
China,
it.
yeah. So anyhow,
I like conspiracies like that. I don't believe them, but I like them.
I don't believe them either, but it's sort of fun because sometimes everything just gets so heavy that like thinking about aliens feels light to me.
Area 51, you don't
Believe?
Yeah, you're not a believer?
No, I believe there are places on the earth that some things have happened. And I believe that there are connections. We don't have to go deeper than that. But I don't believe.
They're already here walking amongst us.
Yeah, I
There you
kind
go.
of, you know.
Yeah. I also wonder why they always come at night. If I were an alien, I'd come during the day.
We're not very creative with the aliens because they are going to look like us. They're not going to look like we think they're going to
Yeah.
look.
I mean, their eyebrows might be
Do you believe
different.
in aliens?
No.
Ugh.
Do
See
you
the
believe in ghosts?
Yes.
Oh, there you go.
All right, there's fun facts. All right, we're going to dig into the news of the day. Before we came in here, Senator Mitt Romney, I think, gave his actual farewell address. He gave one on the Senate floor last week, and then he gave his, I guess, his last news conference with reporters here in Utah this morning. I thought it was interesting listening to him because he feels like the man that we saw in the documentary after he ran for president, where you saw a little bit of personality and a little more unburdened by what has been, as we've said. I think maybe when you're not trying to watch your words as carefully when you're in office, sometimes just it feels a little more.
Yeah, like a normal person.
Yeah, so anyhow.
I thought he did well saying goodbye to his office. I thought he did well. I like when people give speeches. I like when they leave their mark on history, and he was read into the canon and in Congress, and I thought that was nice. I'll be interested to see what he does next. Like, he has resources to have a platform if he wants it. It would also be completely acceptable if he checks out, and that's whatever you do when you have several homes and a lot of kids.
It's
But,
true.
like, you know, it'll be interesting to see if he dabbles in politics in the future.
Do you think he'll dabble and become involved here? Maybe run for the legislature?
Oh, I don't think it'll be in Utah.
Okay, somewhere else.
Yeah, I don't think.
Be the grandfather of the party, or did Trump ruin that for him because he was so anti-Trump?
I think he goes and enjoys his time with Ann and his kids and his family. That would be my guess.
I would do that too.
Yeah.
If you work that hard, making all that money and getting all the cool houses and grandkids, go live it up, man. That's what I would do. Well, congratulations to him. I heard when he was talking today saying that it had been 25 years in politics. It made me stop and assess for a second because I started covering him in 2002 when he came to the Winter Olympics.
yeah.
I covered his presidential run. I was there in Boston the night he conceded the election, was there for a Senate run the night he won, and I was just like, I've been covering him for 25 years, and I'm only 25, so that's weird.
That's amazing.
Well, regardless
Mhm.
of how you feel about his politics, and we can all have a debate
Yeah.
about that, and I certainly don't agree with it, but he is a very talented person, and what he did for the Olympics has set the stage for Utah being able to host the 2034 Olympics. So
Yeah.
there's always things that we can be positive about, and very grateful for some of his services to the state of Utah.
Some of his
and what he's
service,
done.
not all of it.
Well, are you grateful for all of my service to the
I'm
state
grateful
of Utah?
for all of your service. I am not grateful for the fact that you are sometimes insane.
Okay,
So
that's what I'll
I
say.
appreciate all the effort you put. It's just, you know, sometimes I don't appreciate you. I always appreciate your effort.
See, Maura always says it better than
I know.
what I
She
say.
is like the spin master. If you ever need someone to like work over how you're going to reprimand someone for their bad behavior, call Maura in. I need parenting classes from you. Okay, so yesterday, a big headline coming out after Better Utah filed a complaint officially against Senate President Stuart Adams. They're saying that he spent a decade of shady campaign financing and that he was essentially hiding where money was coming and going from by not putting exactly where the destination was or who they were, maybe just using a bank or a credit card. Mike, you're first. You work with him.
President Adams is a great human being, and we talk about service to the state of Utah. That guy has done more for the state of Utah in shaping where the state is at with transportation and a whole host of things than any other, I believe, public elected official in the state of Utah. Let me just say this. Alliance for Better Utah is a far-left activist group and organizations. They come after Republican officials all the time. I don't know how many times I have been beat up by Alliance for Better Utah for taking a stand and not allowing males to play female sports, not allowing boys in girls' locker rooms, not allowing boys in girls' bathrooms, and not just coming against that, but actually pushing and promoting to allow those types of things to happen.
Do you feel like they have a point at all in this? Is there any gray area where he could be doing a better job and giving more clarity to people about where money's coming and going from?
Well, President Adams followed the law. So if there's problems that are out there, then the law probably needs to be changed. And I'm not saying that because I don't know enough about the details of it, but from what I know, President Adams has followed the law, and I trust that he's done that. And again, you have to look at where it comes from and the reasons why and what their motives are behind that. And Alliance for Better Utah is an activist organization that promotes far-left policies. That's where that's coming at. President Adams has taken a strong conservative point of view. They are a threat to what Alliance for Better Utah is doing, and so they're firing back.
What do you think, Maura?
I think I'm going to hold him to account if he does not think there's a role for special interests and activists and 501c4s to participate. So you can't vilify the left when you don't vilify the right. And Mike, you have many a positive relationship with those on the right-hand side of the issue who have the same structure. So I think it's a bit of a red herring to say, okay, I'm going to just focus on who made the accusation. I think when you just look at process, one is there is absolutely some political intent, but there might be some goodness coming from that from a public interest perspective. Where I see political intent is they're looking at over 10 years. So this isn't like a real-time problem with 2024. They clearly decided to look longitudinally at records. I don't know if it was just President Adams, I don't know who it looked at. And then Mike brought up something that is very true, and I think we've got a pretty good balance, but this may be an area to have more. Utah's laws are surprisingly open, simple, I'm going to say. And I am an advocate of simplicity in campaign finance, because when you make it harder to donate, when you make it harder to disclose, what tends to happen is special interest plays a higher role. Mm-hmm. People like me get paid to read the 79 billion pages of law and adhere to law. Utah's done well to make it simple, but this is an area where, not speaking specifically to President Adams, but where if you have ever read campaign finance reports, which I've read a ton of opponents' things just to kind of see who's donating to him, why they're donating. Research. Yeah, I mean, just to figure it out. Smart politics does that, right? But there are a lot of really near no details where you're thinking, what the heck, I don't actually know the intent of this. I think it's great when people know the intent. I will say President Adams did immediately respond. He responded with a level of specificity, and since our listeners are wonks, from my understanding is that you need to differentiate when someone files a complaint with the Lieutenant Governor's office. The elections office, the Lieutenant Governor's office, the purview for them is to follow process, adhere to process, have campaigns and special interest groups adhere to process. Theirs is actually not the enforcement arm. So what they can enforce is fines and fees, they can enforce deadlines, they can enforce following process. If this were to rise to the level of a problem, this would have been moved to the Attorney General's office. What we do know from what President Adams has said is that he did receive a notice from the elections office saying they looked into it, and as far as they were concerned, as Mike said, he adhered to the law. Yeah. So I'm going to split the baby here and say I do think Alliance for a Better Utah has figured out some area where why not do better? So why not ask for more specificity?
Can we ask for that specificity around Alliance for Better Utah and their donors? Because they're out trying to influence public policy. I would like to know who's funding them.
Well, I mean, you will, because much like your donations this year, they're a 501c4.
No.
And they have tried, they account in a different way.
It's dark money. That's where that.
Mike, you cannot say you're not comfortable giving to C4s. You cannot say that.
I have never given to a C4.
And you never will?
I'm not going to say that, but I have never given to a C4 because I don't know, I can't predict the future. I'm not like President Trump. Here, let me tell you something. I am a huge fan of knowing where all money is coming from and where it's going. And the unfortunate part is, again, we do not know where Alliance for Better Utah gets their funding. And I think the public ought to know. I'd call Alliance for Better Utah. Tell us who your funding is. Show us your donations, where you're getting your information from, or your donations from, since you are trying to influence public policy.
That's the worst form of having a public discussion, is to say, I can't look at anything that merit you bring unless we look at those things. So let's do that next
is the
time
best
you're here.
disinfectant.
Next
I
time
think
you're
everybody
here,
knows. Everybody knows.
So you would agree that the sunshine that Alliance may have brought to the issue of how specific the
I just want it, broadly speaking, I want Alliance for Better Utah to disclose their donors. I want politicians to disclose their donors. I want everybody to know, because then we can see.
Call to add a little tweak to the language in the state law?
Well, I'm not going to sit. It's a debate we should have. Absolutely, for transparency. I would like to tweak the state law to allow Alliance for Better Utah to disclose who their donors are. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court shut that down and will not allow that to happen. So we don't know who's funding Alliance for Better Utah, other than we do know they're funded by far-left organizations that push far-left policies.
Okay, so speaking of funding, there was a headline in the Tribune this week. The first line of the story says, a key funder of a shadowy anti-transgender political action committee that attacked Democratic state lawmakers and candidates in the weeks leading up to last month's election is one of the most powerful Republicans in Utah. Dun,
Sunshine.
dun, dun.
Sunshine.
Mike Schultz.
Everybody knows. It's disclosed publicly. Everybody knows.
So they came out with a bit of an attack, saying that you had given $120,000 to Preserving Utah Values PAC, that money going to transgender issues, I understand. You say everyone knows where it's coming from. You're not dark. You're not shady. I want to read it.
Salt Lake Tribune tried to present it in such a way as they were disclosing the donors and disclosing those who contributed and disclosing what they did, as it should be. I would love to see Alliance for Better Utah do the same thing. Look, I will never, ever, ever apologize for standing for Utah values. I will never, ever, ever apologize for standing on the issues of boys do not play in girls' sports. I will never apologize on the issue of boys do not go in girls' locker rooms. I will never stand and apologize for fighting for those principles, and we are a better state because of it, and I will stand up and fight for those values.
Would you have disclosed that had the Tribune not?
I disclosed it publicly for everybody to know.
Like, how did you do that?
They filed the report. I donated. They filed the report like they're supposed to do, and so
Aren't they
everybody
a
knows.
501c4?
It was, well, I don't know.
Was it a state PAC? I think it was a 501c4.
I thought it was 501c3. That
No, you can't give political dollars to C3s. So I think you gave to the same kind of organization. And here I'm looking up.
They disclosed it.
Here's
Yes.
Alliance for a Better Utah's disclosures and their donor list.
Ooh, who's on their donor list?
No, I mean, you'd have to look up their 990s to do that, but it's an IRS regulated institution, and they're just on different things. I think Speaker Schultz has the right to donate to anything he wants. I mean, I actually appreciate, well, I don't appreciate the issues. I appreciate that he exercises his private dollars to do it. Like, I don't think that's much to criticize. But one of the things I do like, the IRS system actually has more shielding in it than the state system does. But I don't understand the resistance. I think like this call is a really nice call to say, yeah, let's have some specificity in donations. I mean, you know, I filled out those forms. Very little is required of them.
I know, we should know how many head of cattle from the ranch it took to buy into the PAC.
That's pretty simple. Look, sunshine is good, and I think it's a good thing.
All right. Hey, I want to talk about election audit that just happened up at the legislature. I believe you were a part of this, right? Or were you just listening in like the rest of the legislators?
Well, I sit on the audit committee, but this is a bill that I actually ran in 2021, HB 269, I believe it was, and that required every election cycle to be audited.
Yeah, and it was kind of interesting looking at it, and as the lieutenant governor said, you're going to see the bad that comes out of this, not the good, because the audit's not looking to see what you did right, they're looking to see what went wrong. But it does look like there were some counties that didn't actually do their audits. They found that there were 1,400 deceased voters who were still on the voter rolls. Half of those, about 700, were still considered active, so they got the ballots in the mail. 2 of them, 2 dead people, cast ballots. Now we're hearing from the Salt Lake County District Attorney that they might look into possibly charging whoever used their dead so-and-so's ballot to cast a vote. And
How
then
would they prove who?
I
They
don't
have to
know.
charge the dead guy?
Well, that's a good question.
Who turned it in?
Not the dead guy, so I guess they've got to figure out if
Who
somebody's.
turned it in for the dead guy? That seems
That's,
like
Yeah.
something to
that's
me.
the problem without having
Well, that would be the
ID to
crime,
turn your
right?
vote in,
No, it's
because
not.
you
This
don't
is the
know
best
who turned it
system in
in.
the world.
That's the problem.
This is the best system in the world.
Let's see what else was wrong. 300 duplicate records. So does that mean like a voter was in the system twice?
That means that they had 2 voter ID numbers, which means they got 2 different ballots, which means they could vote twice, yes.
Okay.
Depending on the clerk, they may not.
So here's my question that maybe one of you guys can answer. I've been wondering, I've kind of just been waiting to see what happens, but my daughter's been living in California for 2 full election cycles, has a driver's license there, she's registered as a voter, she votes there. She doesn't
And you
know
got a
she's
ballot.
Yeah, and we
Your
still get
house.
her ballot, and
Yes.
we shred it because we're good people.
You're good people.
Yeah.
The problem is what about the people that don't shred it?
So
The ones
is she
that,
supposed
especially
to
the
call
ones
the
that know what the
state?
signature looks like.
Or like, how do you get off the voter rolls? Because I thought just by registering in another state, some system will be like. Doot, doot,
That's
doot.
my biggest problem. That was one of the biggest things that we saw in the 2022 election was voter rolls. This is the same thing. Not a lot of look. There, and I want to give the county clerks and the lieutenant governor's office credit where credit is due. They did make some improvements inside our election systems from the 2022. However, on some of the things that I think are the most important and has had some of the most criticism. I mean, for 4 years we have been criticizing voter rolls. You would think that would be one of the first things you do is make sure that you have clean voter rolls. It is not hard to do. There's technology out there. The auditors did it fairly easy. You can scrub this within a matter of hours and get most of the data. Yes, it will take you a little bit of time to go through the rest of the data, but it's not something that takes years and years and years. The auditors did all this work in 2 weeks for the whole state of Utah. We have 29 elected county clerks across the state. We have 1 lieutenant governor's office that's over all of this. This is something that shouldn't be that hard. I want to say there are a lot of county clerks that do a fantastic and an amazing job. However, the audit showed clearly there are a lot of problems that need to be worked on, and we're going to continue to work on that as we move through the session.
So the audit didn't show that. For anyone who has any experience in elections and large database management, the audit should have been a celebration. The amount, the granularity of the accuracy, the percentages for any data system, whether that is a credit card company, whether that is Amazon, you were looking at metrics of data that said the system is good. So Mike and I agree, systems can always be improved. Reviewing systems, no problem, right? I am not suggesting, but 100% is not what happens when you're managing 2 million units. So that's not what we're looking at. The amount of integrity brought to this system, so one can only think that politics is in this, because if you have any background in elections or data science, you're looking at this going, I feel pretty good about this. Yes, you're pointing out areas that you can do better, for sure. You're pointing out anomalies, you're pointing out systems, but there is nobody who knows anything about elections and data science who didn't look at this. Now, one of the things we don't talk about with legislative audits is the dispositional flaw of a legislative audit. So a couple of things, if you've never been audited by the legislature,
see me
which
rolling my
I have
eyes.
had the good fortune of being audited by the legislature so
Ooh,
many times.
I have
But
never been audited by
One
them.
of the things that the challenges with the legislative audit is that
They're
their
honest.
purview is to go from a legislative paradigm. So they apply legislative rules, whether it applies to the system or not. So sometimes the system is operating off of other rules. They don't take those rules into account. Also keep in mind, they have no in-depth expertise. They do a tremendous job going and interviewing people who do it for a living, taking those metrics and bringing it back. But don't confuse these with people who do this for a living. That's not their job. Now, this isn't any audit system except in finances. Finances actually have expertise in the areas that they're auditing. Legislative auditors are really smart, really well-intended, really caring people who are jack of all trades. They take a tutorial, a crash course in a system, and then they review it by a metric that may or may not be the metric that should be used to qualify. So they are not the experts in this, and the integrity of that, you're taking 2 million records, you're finding 2 dead people, and everyone
That
is
voted.
like freaking out.
3 other people that voted that
Mike,
shouldn't
there's
have voted.
statistically
Let me
integrity.
just say this.
You screw
Hold
up
on.
more as Speaker of the House than they
Oh,
do.
I
as
screw up all the time.
Like we're not, but like we're not going to throw you out.
Look, listen. I wholeheartedly agree with Maura that you will never find a foolproof system that is 100% accurate. That is true. However, to have 1,400 dead people on the voter rolls,
No, you don't
700 which
understand.
no, wait,
You
I
don't
didn't talk
understand.
over
The
you.
reason they are on the voter roll is because best practice is to make sure that they cycle through so many general elections before they're dismissed. Now, if you want to tell us that that person has died, they will be taken off the voter roll instantly. Otherwise, you allow that person to cycle
Then
through
we
for
shouldn't
best
have vote by mail.
practices.
That is exactly the reason why we should not have vote by mail, because 700 dead people got ballots.
And none
mailed
of
to
them
the house.
turned them in except 2.
2 of which that we know of, okay? Now, I want to say this, and we talked about this before. I can't tell you how many people reached out to me whose kids moved, they're no longer living in the house, or the prior owner of the house's ballots ended up in the mailbox still. It is a problem. The fact, we can't just gloss over the fact that our voter rolls in many counties are a freaking mess. They are a mess, and it's a problem. And then, let me just say this is where it's a problem. I agree, these numbers, 5 people that we know of voted that was fraudulent, 100%. It's a pretty small number. I
Pretty
agree.
small.
I,
5 out of 2 million.
I agree with it. But the bigger,
Super
the
duper
bigger
small.
problem is there could have been a whole hell of a lot more
But
that we
there
don't know about.
wasn't.
We don't know. We don't know. Now, how about? No, we don't.
You
How-
just audited. You
how
just
many
said I did a
people-
gold.
Listen to me for a minute.
Shiny
I didn't talk
audit.
over you. Listen. How many people?
Listen, Linda.
How many people voted with somebody else's ballot that was mailed to their house that we have no idea? Let me tell you a number that scares the hell out of me. Based off the signature audit, we know that's a problem. Signatures are a problem.
Is this the audit that showed a 2%
It
difference
was
in
4.3% difference because it was a 2.4% that got validated that shouldn't, 1.9% that should have been validated that wasn't. A 4.3% failure rate. Okay, that is a large number. When you start compounding that across
So when somebody
2
wins by
million or 15,
96%,
1.5 million votes, that's fine.
you don't think 96% validity rate. What's your threshold?
I've seen,
What's your threshold, and what are you going to hold
we've seen
your staff
legislative,
accountable to
we've
a
seen
perfection
legislative races won over 5 seats before.
Yeah.
Every year, there's legislative seats won or lost over 100 or 200 votes.
Exactly.
This year, we had a congressional seat won over, I think, 173
Right.
votes.
It was
if
close,
I'm
yeah.
right. And by the way, if we didn't have mail-in balloting and all those ballots that were accurately counted, it could have shifted who won that election. It is
So
a problem.
you think
Look,
there's no error rate with in-person? That's
no, I do
interesting.
think there is an error rate, and
The
I
other
believe
thing
that
you're
there's an
taking-
error rate.
the-
But I believe there's a bigger error rate when you're looking at someone's signature that changes, and clearly there's a
It's
problem.
the same thing when you go in, when you look at an ID.
No, it's not.
Right?
You're
They're
looking at a
checking your
facial
signature.
picture, or you could scan the ID and whatever. There's a whole host of different ways. But no, you cannot say that a signature is every bit of good verification as a photo ID.
Well,
It
I mean,
just doesn't
private
happen.
sector says that, right?
No.
Retail says that. Most.
Well, then
things
if that was the
take that.
case, next time I want to get on an airplane, I just sign my name and I don't got to show my photo ID.
Yeah.
Right? What?
Well,
Like,
I mean-
it doesn't work that way.
So
You
one of the
can't-
things that I do find interesting with the criticism of vote by mail is that when you talk about in person, you hold the voter accountable. But when you talk about vote by mail, it's all the system's problems. I love when people say, the system screwed up, they sent it to the wrong house. It's still your responsibility to vote. When you're dropping it in the mail too late, that's your problem. You made some bad choices. Just like if you show up on Wednesday, don't complain that the library
If
has
that was
already
the
put away
only
their
problem,
stuff.
if that was the only
No, but
problem, then
Mike,
I might agree
you're
with you. But
double
there's not.
standard.
There is a whole host
No.
of problems now that
This
we
is
have
an
2 different
excellent
legislative
system.
audits that we can look back on. It's not. If that was an excellent system, we would have a ton of states that are that way. We don't have a ton of states. I think there's 8 states in the nation that are like us.
So you're
8.
worried, you believe your election was flawed. You believe that the elected officials, you believe that the 75 people sitting in the House likely were not nominated with integrity and elected with integrity.
I'll say this. Last election cycle, I could look at the audits that were conducted from last election cycle and honestly say in good faith that I feel like, yes, there was some errors. However, we have a really good system, and I don't think it affected any outcomes.
And the data this year's better.
No, it's not.
The data's more robust.
I cannot say that this time. I cannot say, looking at last year's audit and looking at this year's audit, to say that I feel like we have a really good system and that it wouldn't have affected outcomes, because especially when you look at Southern Utah and what happened there. Look, there are serious problems.
Races.
There was too, the congressional race.
You're talking about inter-party race.
In like the primary.
In the primary. And Celeste Malloy, I think, is a great congresswoman. She's doing a great job. This is not against her. But 173 votes.
That was largely user error.
It
not
didn't
system
matter.
error. It does matter.
No.
As voters, we also have personal responsibility.
These were ballots that were put in the post office.
Too late.
On time, and because the post office sat on these ballots and shipped them to Las Vegas,
which was the closest central processing.
It took extra days.
If they had sent them to Salt Lake, it would have taken longer.
They put them in time. The post office didn't mark them in time.
If you're just listening
therefore,
to
we
this,
had 500
on YouTube and watching
500 to 1,000 votes that did not count, that were cast on time. That is a problem. That is a problem with the system. Let me ask you this. Do you think the post office is getting better or worse?
In Southern Utah, I think they're getting better. I think they're learning from it. Didn't Washington County start holding the ballots?
Yeah, they did. And they changed their timeline. And as you know, political mail is prioritized.
That's not the post office. That's Washington County.
I just think this criticism is somebody who's very unfamiliar with the process and unfamiliar with big data. I think that the data on this, the statistics, I'm not saying it can't be improved, but you're looking at throwing out a system that has conservatively 96 to 98% accuracy. And you're like, whoa, I think this is crazy. We don't have that accuracy level at any level of government. I mean, have you visited the DMV lately? Have you watched? I mean, there's flaws in every large-scale system. So the question is, what's a flaw because of a bad system?
Look, I believe there's a hybrid out there that can work that will actually make the system better. And that's what
more in-person places.
I think
is that what the hybrid means?
Having the ballot that gets mailed to your house, and then you have to physically take that ballot at some point in time, and the signatures, the fact that it's mail, that you're relying on the post office, and I disagree with you guys. I don't think the post office is gaining a better reputation. There's more problems happening inside the post office.
I don't think all post offices. I think Washington County specifically tried to have a relationship with them down there where they started pulling bullets.
He'll make it great again.
He might make it great again, and then maybe you can look at it. But until that happens again, I have a hard time with the current system.
I think this is non-data driven, partisan politics.
We got an audit. I mean, good heavens.
You got an audit by non-experts that, in what my reading of the audit, I would have done a celebratory dance.
That's because you want vote by mail. You don't want to look at the real data.
No, it's because I've been involved in elections for 25 years, Mike.
You have,
and I have read, and you know
business.
what?
I agree.
You should have seen, if you think this was bad, I ran a data company for the voter rolls, and we used to buy the data from the state. I'm going to say there was a 30-40% error rate on their rolls. Now, voters would still get it. You would still get it. But do you remember back in the day when you had to really go? It was like working with the DMV. It's not that you didn't vote. It's that it wasn't very good. Now, what has happened is technology. Technology has made it so much easier to do 360, to do SQL servers, to do appended data. But I'm just telling you, this has a level of integrity that deserves to be right-sized. We should improve it, but I don't think the distrust we have in systems right now isn't warranted. There should be no distrust in the Utah election system.
If everybody was like Heidi and we could trust everybody and everybody was going to do the right thing, I would agree with you. We have a good system.
2 dead people.
2 dead people, 3 people that had 2 voter ID numbers voted.
There's 5 bad people
that we
Utah.
know of.
We've established.
And how many people who had the ballots mailed to their house didn't figure out a way to sign it? I know a lot of people that signed their wife's ballot or their wife's finding their husband's ballots, kids' ballots, whatever it is. The fact is they're signing other ballots and mailing them in their county. That is a problem. I do know that.
You don't know that. You can show me no data that you got feels about it. and that doesn't count.
I do think that mail-in ballots do bring up questions on a myriad of levels. I think Utah is doing it right in a million different ways, but I have heard other states where they have more issues with maybe ballot harvesting or multiple prints of ballots, which are questions. But interestingly enough, even though I think there's problems with mail-in ballots, we probably need to figure out how to make our elections as safe as possible. I think Trump ultimately won this election because he embraced the mail-in ballots, which he didn't previously, because he gave people permission, essentially. They talked about this in a recent Time article this week about how he eventually was like, okay, let's encourage people to get out and vote and use the system that's in place. But doesn't mean it can't be better.
But we also do know that statistically who's harmed the most by not having a robust vote by mail ballot system is women, because women have a harder time carving out time to get to the polls.
Well, that's why if you have 2 weeks to drop your ballot off, it'd be great. And you do it in person and you show your ID, and we can't have dead people doing it.
But why can't you do both? Why do you have to hate on vote by mail? Just make it more available for in-person, Mike.
Well, I think there's a hybrid there. And that's
So
where
vote
I
by
think we
mail,
ought to
so
go.
you get it in the mail, but then you drop it off to a real human.
You have to
Or
drop
you
it
mail
off,
it
get
in.
your ID scanned, and if you mail it in, then that's a problem, because then you got to rely on the signatures, which we know there's a 4.3% failure rate on the signatures. It doesn't work.
You're not showing a statistical problem in my mind.
Well, then you have to look at all the people that got ballots that are not like Heidi, that did sign those ballots and turned it in, that we will never know. And the problem is we have a system that
Right,
allows
so
for that.
you never
And
know.
not
You
everybody's
think there's a lot.
honest.
I
And
know.
there are people out there that try to cheat the system.
And
We
there's-
know that.
there's
And there are
only
other votes
7
out there
total
that we
people.
don't even know about. There's other votes out there that we don't even know about
There's only 7
that
of them.
counted, that maybe they did move an election. I don't know. That's a problem.
There's only
However,
7 of them.
there is a better policy out there to be had, and that's what the legislature is going to be discussing this year.
Yeah, but
What is the best
Mike,
policy that
Mara's
encourages the
Trump
most?
hat is not working.
Mara's-
It's not making her agree with you.
There's a common theme, which is we know everything, we know better than experts. And like you're headed into, like, maybe that shouldn't be the legislature.
I don't know. There's a common theme out there that should look at it and say dead people shouldn't be voting, and we should recognize
and
there's a problem.
You should have experts figure it out, and instead you're like, well, we're a 45-day lay session. Pretty sure we have all the answers.
What if the dead
Like,
people vote like you?
That's the best part, is all the
interesting.
experts are going to have a say in the process. That's what's beautiful about our process.
Push it
Everybody
back
gets
to
a
the
say.
experts.
We're going to.
Like, I don't know, maybe independently
We pushed it
elected
back to
clerks.
the experts, and we got a 4.3%
They're
failure
not
rate.
experts. I mean, just let the clerks do their job. Give them directives. Stop busting
That's the
people around.
ones that we have a problem. Anyways, I want to say
I
we've got a
hope
lot of
this
great
legislative session, the legislature has a 46% success rate.
Oh,
with
we're
your
going to be
processes.
99.8%.
Okay, were you going to audit
Count on
yourselves
it.
when you're done?
We
Would you
always
like
do
me to
everything.
lead the audit committee? I'm happy to.
Ooh, this is
Carve
going
out
to get
that amount of
spicy.
time.
I can't wait. You guys are going to spend so much time together in the new year. It's going to be so good. So here's something people have been talking about on social media, and everyone kept tagging me in this. I'm like, what is this and what is happening? So apparently there's a women's Republican club of Salt Lake City, Utah. Who runs that, I guess, is my question. I don't know if it's like, is it endorsed by the Utah State GOP, or is it just like a private club of ladies who are Republicans, want to hang out together? Anyhow, I think there's a dues of about $30 or $40 for the year. People had paid their dues, but they weren't allowed in. There's videos online of a trans woman at the door telling them that they couldn't get in. So people are like, who put her in charge? Why are we having to answer to you? We paid our dues. Is this a real problem, or is someone trying to create a problem? What's happening? Is this just are Republicans fighting amongst themselves? What has happened?
Well, I wasn't there, so I don't know the specifics.
Because you're not a girl?
Yeah, and I don't dress like one either. So, anyways, look, anytime Republicans fight, Democrats win. And the way I look at this was, you probably had some more moderate members inside the Republican Party and more conservative members inside the Republican Party trying to clash over leadership elections, and I think that's what sparked it all. There's probably a little bit of fault to go all the way around, but I really wish these types of fights would happen behind the scenes and not out in public for everybody to see, because that's when the Democrats start to win.
Is this a time when you show up, and if you don't like who's representing you and the people don't want to let you in, you just form your own club? Or is this when women should fight to hang out together and, I don't know, figure out their differences?
I don't even know what was going on here. I don't think this was about women. I think any time Republicans fight, it's a win for Democrats.
So you're like, keep it up, ladies.
Keep it up. You guys are doing a heck of a good job.
Yeah. So this This club, though, is just like a private club of women who with like-minded individuals who like to hang out. Do they do service projects? Do they come up with policy and they come to the legislature?
I know nothing of this.
I know nothing either, and I have my thoughts and opinions, but I'm scared.
This is
to
the
say,
time
'cause
to
I
give
don't
them.
know. I don't. The problem is I don't know. If maybe next time I'll do a little more research into it, and then I'll come back and we can talk about it. But I don't want to say because I don't know. But all I'm going to say is the more Republicans fight, Democrats start to win. So.
All right, kumbaya is
probably
what needs to happen, ladies.
A little bit of fault on both sides.
All right. Deadline. It was approaching this last week for Salt Lake City and the Miller Group to make a deal for the MLB stadium to happen, or they would cede control. This was something passed by the legislature. I didn't realize they actually came to a deal, but they did. Maura, I think I remember from past conversations that when you were looking at the MLB deal and also the deal that was going to be happening for Utah Hockey Club coming, that you didn't love this deal as much.
Yeah, I don't love the structure of this deal. I think it lacks. I don't like the overlay that the legislature has had with this. I don't like the financing structure. I also think owning a stadium is a fool's errand, and so why a government entity would want to do that. I don't know that MLB's model is as aggressive as hockey's model is. Here's what I do know. I think you got a good player in the Miller Group. So I always get concerned that in Utah we take things so personally, and I'm not indicting who wants to grow our economy, who wants to invest. The Miller Group has come and seriously listened to the community and the plans around it, so I'm not indicting their intention. But I will say gentrification in this area I don't think is what they want. I don't think we've achieved our goal of affordable housing. When you put a 10% and even a 20% marker on affordable housing, it's not affordable. It's 80% non-affordable. I think we're overrun with this kind of stadium. I think we're a little inebriated right now with playing up a league, and we don't know anything about the sport structures in it. We have not traditionally invested in our teams well enough to make them economically pay off. So just from on the sheets record, I do have some criticism. If I'm being really critical, I also don't find Salt Lake City to be someone who gets into the details. I think that they do more on relationships and they do more on posturing, and I wish someone would get into the finances as a byproduct of good government. Again, I think everybody's a good operator. There's no bad boogeyman in this, but we've got to be a little more serious about how desirable we are and not take every deal that comes to the state of Utah. And as a Salt Laker, I want to say, yeah, let's do better. Let's really make sure it fits where we want. Now, the cleanup would be good. Nobody is talking about the fact that that area is a green field. I think that the state, if you guys agree to foot the bill, then you're insane. I mean, the cleanup on this side is going to be tremendous. There's just so many things that over the years I know we've all talked about on this site, and they're not coming up as part of the public discussion. And it concerns me that we're fast tracking it so quickly.
Well, I disagree a little bit on that because the West Side is extremely excited about this because of what it brings and the fact that it is cleaning up a huge area and changing what the West Side looks like. Every representative elected from the West Side supported this, every one of them. This was something that Salt Lake City and the Millers came together on. I'm proud of that. I think that's what we ought to be talking about, is the give and take that happened there to make something better for the West Side. I think it's a huge win for the West Side, and I'm excited for that to happen on
Is
the
it
West
good
Side.
that the city made the deal without losing
Absolutely.
control?
Absolutely. I think it was a great part on the city's part.
Okay.
I think the city won on this. I really do. I think this was a huge win for Salt Lake City.
The Millers agreement that with the city is a great agreement. The agreement that the state has made with the city is much more beneficial to the state. Well done.
Isn't that our job?
I'm just telling you, well done.
So much winning.
Our
I'm
job
just
is
a
to
Salt
do
Laker, so I think I would have not
Our job is
wanted
to
you
do what's
as
best
well.
for the citizens of the state and for the citizens.
Yeah, no, I
of
think you
that-
achieved
in that-
your goal.
in
I'm just
that-
saying as a Salt Laker, I would have negotiated harder with
in
you.
that community. Look, I think it was a big win. I think it was a big win for the West Side. I think it was a big win for Salt Lake City. It was a win for the Millers, and ultimately, the West Side wins on this, and I think it's good.
We will not like having an MLB stadium there. It will not. I mean, there is no economic modeling that shows that that's the hub. What becomes the hubs are bars,
Well,
restaurants, and high-end.
let me just say this.
And this is the most beautiful corridor. If you guys haven't really spent the time you should on corridor thinking, that corridor
The Jordan River.
is, well, the Jordan River, which really reminds you of downtown Denver and really reminds you of Rocky Stadium. Also, it's on the way, it already has light rail in there, it already has infrastructure, it's on the way to the airport, it's got so much going for it. I'm just saying we can do so much more dimensional thinking than we do having a large scale stadium.
Yeah. That area is kind of a mess right now, but it can be beautiful. I don't know if you've ever done this, but you can kayak down the river there. And it's actually very lush compared to where I live along the river, and it's beautiful, but it is beautiful and nasty at the same time.
Yeah.
When I talk about like hypodermics on the shore, think that, I mean like bottles full of pee, tires, shoes, it is just like junked up and gross.
Without this happening, it would not be cleaned up. And so I'm excited for the west side. I'm excited for the cleanup that happens.
Kyle Amalfa is leading the cleanup effort in that area.
Interesting. What's the timeline for when people should feel like that there's going to be exciting things happening there?
I don't know the timeline, to be honest with you. I'm not involved in the details.
All right. We'll have to wait and see what happens to the old ballpark area first.
When we're ready for it?
No, never.
Good talk.
So we agree on that. Don't give them money. Help them figure this
Why
out.
would we give Salt Lake City money?
Aren't you guys going to own the stadium?
Right now, yeah, the current system is for the Salt Lake,
I feel good about
the
that.
state of Utah owning the stadium.
I do feel good about that part of the deal, because you guys will be saddled with it.
It is a good deal for the state of Utah.
Is it good business for the state to own a stadium?
I think it is. I think that the structure that came about, if baseball pays for itself, that's the structure of this deal. If without baseball, it pays for itself. So the money generated from the stadium pays for the stadium.
Maura made a face.
Yeah, I did.
It
Baseball doesn't pay for itself. I love baseball. I would spend all my time on the 86 home games, but it doesn't pay for itself.
All right. Maybe if you charge enough for hot dogs. We'll see how that goes. I don't know.
Well,
Real expensive.
If you buy a hot dog at the stadium, you're paying for the stadium. That's the best part of this deal.
Pro tip. So there you have it. Talk a couple national headlines before we go right now. Trump was named Times Person of the Year. He rang the New York Stock Exchange bell, which I think he was the first president since maybe Reagan to do that.
Oh, really?
So it was kind of interesting watching that happen. A lot of people arguing online whether or not he should have been the person. The person who's picked as Trump Times Person of the Year isn't always the best person in the world. People will point out that Hitler was Times Person of the Year. It's just someone who influenced the world. But I think overall, if you had to pick someone, I'm like, who do you pick that had a bigger year of everything happening to them?
Look, whether you like Trump or you dislike Trump, you have to look at this and say he has made a huge positive impact for our country and for the world. And when you see consumer confidence jump by 9 points in 30 days, that should tell you something. There's a lot of excitement coming around what President Trump is doing, and he's already moved the needle. President Trump, even though he's not the president, he is running the country right now, and he is the president.
Wow, so that's totally
He's going to get
not true.
4 years and 3 months. 2 months.
No, so he's not. He's not making policy. And
Who's listening to Biden? He is. Everybody is playing to
but
Trump.
Mike,
You have Amazon
know
leaders
enough
this met
about
with him,
government to be
Zuckerberg
a
this
respecter
met with
of
him.
the process.
He invited Xi Jinping to the inauguration.
Yeah, no.
Think about that for just a minute.
know
and what
he's
that
outside.
means.
I'm
Keep
not
your friends
disagreeing
close
with
and your
this.
enemies closer.
I'm not
Bingo.
disagreeing with the outsideness, but when you ask me to accept him as my president, which I will, you need to respect President Biden all the way through. And you need to respect the decisions that the executive branch is making. What you see in Trump is an enormous ability to get attention, and probably for that he deserves it. But let's not mistake that with influence, and he will have power, and he has an enormous ability to draw attention. But let's not confuse that ever with serious-minded, and let's not confuse that with success. So we don't know yet if he'll be successful or not. He's already told us this week that he's not going to reduce our grocery numbers, and that's going to be a really hard job for him. So he's already got to figure that part out. And we don't have to think it's positive. I think he's one of the biggest forces of negativity that I have ever seen America have to grapple with. But I totally
listened to the
agree
news, the story
he's an
that there's
outside.
already.
I know when you were listening to Fox, it told you that. I understand that.
That there's already movement happening on the hostages.
Yeah, I know your news sources are already telling you that he's doing a
that's better than Alliance for Better Utah.
Heck of
your
a good
news
job.
sources.
But I'm just saying, like, I think it's probably deserved on how outsized he is. But America's love of celebrity is it'll be tested in which do you love the antics and the celebrity, or do you like getting things done? Because here's the good news: Republicans, swung for the fence. That you guys wiped off the board. You will have both chambers and the executive branch, and you have a commitment to getting things done in 90 days. And I look forward to those accomplishments.
President Trump has already been successful, and he's not even entered office.
What has he succeeded in?
His 90 days are going to be tricky because he's picked so many people for his cabinet and positions from the House that until they get those people replaced, he's going to be handicapped on votes in that area.
Well, but he also doesn't have any legislative
Let
choice.
me tell you the huge success that he's already had.
Okay.
Where were gas prices post November 5th?
If
And
you
where
know
have gas
anything,
prices after
if you know
November
anything
5th?
about gas prices, they are not dependent. The only thing the president can do on gas prices is release oil reserve, and Donald Trump has not.
No. That is not true. Come on,
You're
gas
talking about
prices.
consumer confidence, but
No.
confidence is different.
I know
than
a lot
taking
about
it
gas
to
prices. Gas prices are dictated off commodity prices. Commodity prices are traded off speculation. That drove down prices.
But the only thing the
at
president
pump
of the United
that
States
Americans
can do is
are-
release our oil
that-
reserves.
No.
And you want to know who produced more
drill,
oil
baby,
than
drill,
anybody?
baby, drill.
Who has the highest oil production rate?
United States, and they're going to increase
And
it
you want to
even
know
more.
who
And it
increased
got
it?
there.
Joe Biden.
No,
Joe
President
Biden
Trump-
has increased oil production in the United States.
Joe
We're net
Biden did
exporters.
everything he can
We're
to
net
shut
exporters, my
down.
friend.
To shut down.
We're net exporters.
Oh my gosh! Look at the policy.
You know
Look
what
at
Trump's
the.
going to do? That he's going to crash the barrel price. And you saw 15 years ago when you crashed the barrel price what happens. Your love of natural gas and alternatives kaboom with the oil prices.
No. That is not true.
It is.
You can produce
Biden increased net production in gas and oil.
because of Trump policies. Trump policy
Oh
moved
my
us to that
gosh.
point.
You guys
Listen
are
to me.
killing me.
I don't care who's in
You
charge
can-
of the gas prices, but I paid $2.65 at Costco the other
Bingo.
day, and I
President
felt like
Trump-
I could buy myself some extra dried mangoes that are so
Bingo.
expensive inside. I was like,
All
la
of
la.
them
Going to be
successful.
President Trump. How's
There
he
you go.
doing on immigration? Heck of a good job there. Ooh, that problem solved. Oh wait,
What?
he didn't solve
Oh,
it.
I'll tell you
Yeah,
what.
we'll
How about
we'll get there.
grocery
We'll get there.
prices? How come-
to talk
how
about
come-
immigration, immigration was solved for the most part until
Okay,
Biden
then-
came in and
then
opened up the
how
borders
come-
and created the pathway to elect Donald Trump.
While
Thank you,
Donald
President
Trump was
Biden.
solving problems, why hasn't he solved grocery prices?
Look, that is a complicated thing, and
Well,
he
so is
will.
oil and immigration, but he's already solved those according to you.
Supply and demand, good policies, getting the government out of the way, and letting farmers grow without all these regulations that stop everything from happening. Do you know, I'm in this business. Do you know that
You're in ranching, not farming.
same thing. I have to buy tractors. To buy a decent sized tractor is almost $1 million today.
Yeah.
You know what it was 4 years ago?
Yeah.
About $600,000.
What's one of the most subsidized industries in the nation?
Well, that's a whole nother
Corn,
different
soy.
discussion.
Yeah. Farming and ranch.
So I have a question for you while we're on this. This wasn't on my list, but RFK is wanting to go in there and change a lot of who gets those subsidies for the government, whether it's farming, ranching, talking about maybe more holistic ways of raising animals and farming, getting rid of some of the chemicals and vaccines for animals or other things. Do you welcome that, or do you not want the government telling you how to raise your cows?
No, I welcome. There needs to be some restrictions put around some of this. There has to be, and we'll see where this ends up. But you look at some of the things happening and out there, and some of the things that are ending up in our foods. That's one area that is bipartisan. Again, RFK was a Democrat up until recently, but there's bipartisan there. We need to look at that. Absolutely.
Are your cows grass fed?
All my cows are grass fed.
You don't finish them
No
off with
supplements?
M&Ms?
It's a different business models, but everything that I
I
raise,
heard a no.
everything that I raise is grass fed. But then I sell off the calves, and I don't know what happens after that.
Do you keep one for yourself that you can make your own?
I don't, because it's just the extra work.
No.
So.
Extra
Right.
work, you send it to a butcher in Brigham City and call it a day. What's the extra work there?
It's not when you have that many cows and you try to keep one or two
Actually, just
separate.
asked if you had one. Do you harvest one? for your
No,
own
because
house?
I'm not doing it that way. No, I'm selling them off before you harvest them.
Okay.
Why, like,
So-
why not keep
and by the way,
why not keep one in
'Cause
your
by the
if
way,
you know that
grass
you,
fed
like, fed it.
sounds good, but have you ever tasted grass fed?
I
no,
love it.
I've been a
Ah.
vegan for like 13
Not
years,
me.
so I
Let's
don't
give
know.
a shout
like
out to LeVar
corn
Webb.
fed. I like corn fed.
LeVar
Yes.
raises completely, I mean,
Organic.
oh my gosh,
Yeah.
His animals are beautiful, and then he humanely harvests them in their field while he's telling them stories.
And
about
delivers them to
the
Maura's
rest, and
kitchen
then he
table.
delivers them. Well, I have to go send it to the butcher.
Hey,
But
there
then
needs
he
to be
delivers
more
it.
of that.
It's the
There
way to
needs be
eat
more
meat
of
if
that.
you're going to eat it.
You can't. There's nothing. There's no fat in it. It does taste different. It tastes more like venison.
So it tastes more wild. Interesting. I don't
I
know
like
these
a little
things. I'm
fat,
trying to
but-
learn. My husband for a million years has been like, if you just eat some meat, you'll solve all your problems. And then my doctor is like, you know what, you're getting old enough. So I'm like, fine. So I'm trying to eat turkey bacon because I can cook it to the point that it's leather and it doesn't feel so much like meat. But I'm so disgusted by it.
Yeah.
So anyhow, I hope I get to the point someday where I can answer these questions
Well,
about.
Mike could have provided you healthy cows, but he didn't want to.
He doesn't want to. Somebody else could
Maybe
chop
someday.
them up.
It's a different business model. Maybe under the RFK business model, maybe I'll switch.
Keep
Okay.
a couple in the back.
Yeah.
A little back
I know,
area,
because you don't want
put a
cows that
hammer.
somebody finishes off. I was reading some article the other day that some of the factories that, let's say, make M&Ms or Skittles, there's always like crumbs of the sugar and junk.
Like-
And they send it off to farms and they finish animals with them. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't want to
That's
eat that. Yeah. I mean, it's
I-
cheap calories, the M&M crumbs. Yeah.
I have the ability to keep and raise my own cattle. I buy cattle. I buy my meat at the store just like everybody else. I have confidence in that product.
Interesting.
And so I'm good with it.
I would
I'm
have
good with that
thought
system.
you'd be out there doing it yourself.
Yeah. Come on.
I'm a little
You
bit
have chickens?
disappointed.
Maybe someday. Maybe
Do you
I'll
have
get that.
eggs?
I do have eggs. We do our own eggs. Yes.
Okay.
And
Okay.
it's amazing. They do taste better.
They taste remarkably different, and they're more filling.
They do taste better. Years
Yeah.
ago, we had someone who had like a farm that didn't feed them any kind of feed or whatever, and I could eat eggs, but I have a lot of allergies, and I can't find them any at the store that I can eat them because they feed them soy and other garbage. So, anyhow, there you go. At least you're doing your own eggs. I like
Their
that.
own eggs. My kids,
All right.
they love it.
Off topic. So sorry we went down the farm road there.
But at least we got along.
Yeah.
together, so.
Proof that Biden is still the president. He has commuted yesterday a record number, 1,500 sentences, pardoned 39 more to come, he says. And he's selling off all the border wall stuff that's on the border, apparently. He's auctioning it off. He's just
That's
like, I've
a
got
winner
5
for him in
weeks,
the public, isn't it?
sticking it to the man. It seems
Well,
like a waste
why
of
not?
tax dollars.
Exactly. It's a waste of tax dollars.
You mean to have built it? Yeah, I agree.
Well,
No,
if
no,
they're
no,
going to
you
build
have
it
to
anyways,
build
it
it.
seems weird when there's only 5 weeks left to sell it off just to stick it to the man. You're like, because that's just
No,
wasting
but he's
taxpayer
not sticking
dollars,
it
right?
to the man. He's sticking it to the taxpayer, and that's the
How
Democrat
does
Party for
selling
you.
it off stick it to the taxpayer?
I don't think they're making
Because we're
much
going to
money
have to
off
turn
it.
around and
Right,
buy
but-
it back. That's
No,
why, because
no,
we're going to build
That's a
more,
choice that Trump will make to stick it to the taxpayer.
so we can have secure borders.
Yeah, you
That's
don't need those.
not a weird.
Ask
who
East
wants?
Berlin how that went for them. I mean, like, it's just, it's.
That's because they
it's
divided
stupid.
the West from the East
She asked
in
us
the
about
country.
the commutations, and they were they're largely nonviolent. They're
Yeah.
pretty run of the mill. I mean, like, I don't mean that in a dismissive way, but they sort of follow a line of reasoning in which it frees up some jail cells. They're largely nonviolent. The one that will be interesting is he has been being lobbied for, I don't know, 6-8 months to commute the sentences of anyone on death row to a life sentence, and there's been a lot of pressure to move anyone on death. So again,
And it would be a
federal
blanket
crime, federal
move?
crime.
Okay, interesting.
So it would be by person, but he's been being lobbied for quite a bit to as part of a pushback on what may be a pro death penalty. Although I should say of the Republicans, the death penalty issue is not a unanimous issue in the Republican Party by
Yeah.
any means. But I do know he's been getting a lot of pressure for months to commute the sentences of those who are federally charged on the death row penalty.
I can't get past the Hunter Biden. I'm still stuck on the Hunter Biden pardon.
You'll get past it when he pardons all the January 6 people. That'll help you put it in
Well,
perspective.
I don't think he should. I don't think Trump should pardon every January 6th person either. But that raises a bigger problem. The fact is, we don't trust our judicial system or our not judicial, but what's the AGs?
Justice. I want to help, but I don't know.
I know I don't hear you, so I'm moving your mic.
Oh, oh my gosh, not the judicial system.
The investigative process?
Yes,
the Department of Justice?
The Department of Justice,
Oh,
the justice system. We don't trust our justice system, and that's a problem. And I hope that gets cleaned up.
Yeah. I've always been somewhat confused by why I can see where in rare instances this power, the executive power for pardons exists. Sometimes it seems confusing and they're just doing deals for, people they want to make, good on. I think this massive one yesterday wasn't really deals of anyone they were friends with. It was just a lot of people who were kind of in the same boat. What I was interested in is a lot of people were tweeting on social media about these 3 Chinese spies that he'd pardoned. It was someone who'd had terabyte after terabyte of child porn. I looked into that, and that wasn't actually a normal pardon. It was a trade with China where we got 3 people back and then they got 3 bad guys back. So that was not part of, if you were looking at that yesterday, the part of the 1,500 sentences that were pardoned there.
I
different.
have a hard time with such a large number. I do. When you have that large of a number, you're letting people out that should never be let out.
They're non-violent offenders.
Of course they are.
I mean, they are. Like, that's not me. Don't like roll your eye at that. Like, that wasn't.
That's what all the left says.
That was.
The left
No,
says
like
everybody's
that's what it says
nonviolent.
in their arrest records, Mike. I'm not like that's not a characterization of them. That's sort of the data around them.
So here's the new
It's in the
argument
data.
beyond pardons. Trump is saying that he wants to end birthright citizenship. This is part of his deal with looking at the border and immigrants coming into the country, and he says that maybe we need to get rid of the birthright citizenship, which since our country's birth, well, really after slavery, I guess is when it was, that the 14th Amendment came to be. And so that's why we see people who come across the border, they have children here, their children are then American citizens. And he says that there is room in the 14th Amendment. He gets agreement from Senator Mike Lee that the words "and subject to the jurisdiction thereof" in the 14th Amendment means that Congress or someone else could look at what the jurisdiction is and what the rules are. Maura, do you see this as a possible way to solve some of our problems, or is this the wrong road?
I am being grateful that I do not think constitutionally that King Donald will be able to do that. I think when he forms his monarchy and all of the sheep go along with him, maybe when he's King Donald, he can change it, but I'm pretty sure it's unconstitutional. I appreciate that Mike Lee is still trying to get Donald Trump to like him, but I don't think in the plain reading and most of the interpretation that this will have much legs. I also think with all the issues of immigration, he might find this tactically not a smart point. I mean, regardless of what you think about that policy, he's got so many wins right now in large-scale immigration. He's got really a lot of momentum within the conservative movements around it. I think he'll find this one to be a surprisingly divisive factor, and I just don't think legally it'll play out.
Pick his battles.
I am so frustrated with the federal government, regardless of both parties, around immigration. It is not that hard to solve. It is simple. Build a nice, big, beautiful wall, secure the border, put a door in it, create an opportunity at a measured rate, measured that we can sustain, that actually is helpful to America, and a process for people to come through that door, get a work card, go to work for a period of time, 5, 10 years, whatever that is determined to be, pay your taxes, be a contributor to the society, creates the pathway to citizenship, and allow them to be citizens. It is not that difficult or that hard to solve. I wish and I hope that they focus on this. I hope.
I think that's one of the biggest frustrations is most Americans say this isn't that hard if they could just sit down and hammer out a deal.
It's not hard. It's not hard.
I think Mitt Romney said that was one of his biggest disappointments because he ran and thought that he would be able to go in there with his power and solve it. But the problem is everyone makes promises and then it takes people willing to sit down, make the deal, and not worry about who's going to get the credit.
Here's going to be the big test of the Senate and the Congress held by Republicans. The overlap on policy here is huge. I think most Americans, Republicans, Democrats, just as Mike said, I don't know that this is a highly partisan issue when it comes to drafting bills. It's a highly partisan issue about who gets to characterize and who gets credit. And so if you find a degree of moderate Republicans who will reach out to moderate Democrats and form a coalition where they can pass it, and because I don't think you can rely on the extreme politics of either party, because they want political wins. They don't actually want an administrative system that works for you. So I think if we could get a really smart group, it needs to be led by the Republicans. They're the ones that have the authority. But if they could cobble together a group of Democrats and start chipping away at the administrative part, which is just, it's just unconscionable.
And if it's led by Republicans during a Republican time, then you get conservative policies. And it's a
they don't
win.
Even need to be conservative. They just need to be good government.
It depends on where you draw the line, right? You can draw the line, depending on where you draw the line on immigration reform. I would rather see the Republicans take the win on it, draw it on a conservative line, lay out a process similar to what I just laid out, and it's a win for the Republicans and it's a win for this country.
But it doesn't even require the labeling. It's actually just
I
good.
agree with you.
I mean,
I
big
agree with
business
you.
agrees.
Yeah.
Yeah. Advocates for human rights agree.
Everybody
It's just
agrees.
everyone agrees
I
on this.
agree.
So
It's
if we
not
can
that
resist
hard.
the urge to make it political and just do something administrative, I mean, I think that's the why the frustration level is so high, is that it is just a process question.
Yeah.
If we can't get it right, maybe we'll have the legislative
There's
auditors take a look at it.
so much consensus around this amongst the American people. It's what's wrong with our government. It's what's wrong with our system. The fact that our elected officials can't figure that out.
Yeah.
I'd love to see Congress and the President Trump take this on.
I think we're all on the same page. So if there were one Christmas wish, this is what we're wishing for at this point, just to pull it together and make it happen.
If Amy
That's
Grant
it.
could work that into
Yes,
it.
wish it in. Well, I think that is worthy of it. I'm glad we can agree on something at the end here, that somebody
Well,
needs to
and
get something
nicely.
accomplished in the new year. But before we even get to
I
that,
don't think the Trump helped me very much.
you didn't
feel
think
like
it didn't
that
make
made
you
that
feel?
would
feel
the
better
end.
though looking at me on it.
I felt like it was great until the elections stuff started to talk about,
That's
but
what
I
it
feel
felt
like,
like.
yeah.
So is she?
I do
Are you
feel
going to wear
are
this the rest of the day,
So
or
it's
is
not
your
magic.
term, is your
Oh, no,
sentence
she has
served
to,
now?
She has to wear it the rest of the day.
Oh, there's no clemency at
I
this
Oh,
point.
spent
no, I'm
two
not like
meetings
Biden.
on the Hill after this.
You do?
Yes, I do. I'm not gonna lie. I'm a little
Ooh.
afraid.
This is what I need. Is I need you to follow her around with the
I
camera
know,
and see the reactions.
I'm
People are going to
I'm
be
gonna
like.
ask who she's meeting with and make sure they send me pictures so I can
There's going to be
verify
a
this.
belief that those New Jersey drones did have aliens that came and captured Maura and then put this woman with this hat back on Earth. Well, I'm glad that we all got along for at least a few minutes. It's been great having you. Next time around, we'll see if the government is shutting down in our nation's capital or if we're going to pass a little something or a CR or what. Always fun to see what the government's going to do next. Not that all people in government are bad. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back again next week.
God,
It was so hot.
that's how we were nice.